Hey, y'all, this is Lady C coming back at you from Hidden Struggles. And in this upcoming episode, it's going to be all about serving the brothers in prison. I mean, when you think about how many people have gone to prison for the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society throughout the years, have you ever thought about how they have not organized any campaigns to help them with, like care packages, letters, gifts, and things like that to help them while they were in prison? Now, I'm only bringing this up because I just got my eyes on the July 2024 announcements, and it really struck a chord with me. And the reason why is because JT and I interviewed an individual from another country a couple years ago, and he shared his experience. And we actually asked him whether or not when he went to prison for the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, if they organized anything for the brothers that went to prison who were, maintaining their neutrality because they didn't want to go to war in their country. And they had to go to serve in the military. And I think they had to do 3 years. And if they didn't do that, these brothers were actually sent to prison. So he let us know that no, they did not organize anything, but his family, his close family, and maybe some people from his congregation may have sent some things in, but nothing was organized from the level of the branch or even Watchtower headquarters. And, I make this point because when you think about your affiliation with the Jehovah's Witnesses, and I know I can say this myself, that when I would go to the Kingdom Hall, I felt confident. I looked around my congregation and I was like, if something popped off and I needed some assistance, I knew all these brothers and sisters in this congregation would be there for me. And I even had even more confidence that if we wrote the branch in Brooklyn at the time, when we were in the organization, it was in Brooklyn, New York, that they would definitely send down their attorneys to assist us, right? And I want to make this point clear, too, because right before we left the religion, when we were waking up to the truth about the truth, I remember there was a kingdom ministry. And it might have even been a letter to the body of elders. And if I can find that, by the time I post this video, I'll put it in the description and how you can find it. But one of the things that they talked about was going out in the ministry. And there were some issues coming up when people would go out in service and they would encounter a home that actually said, hey, look, don't be trespassing and stuff like that. And, violators will be prosecuted and stuff like that. So the Watchtower made it very clear that even though they were telling us to go out in field service and, go house to house and bring this good news to these people's homes, that if we trespassed on somebody's property, we were on our own. They were not going to do anything to assist us if we, stepped across those lines. And we were talking about it before we left, about how we could see how the society was kind of turning on us. How, we thought that they had our back. Because back in the day, they went to court. If you know the Watchtower's history, you know that they won a lot of Supreme Court victory throughout the past. So we were like, wow, we're seeing how the Watchtower is really turning their back on their members. And so when they actually put these announcements out, it was kind of interesting. And, go ahead and take a look at my screen. And this is what it says. It says, many publishers have inquired about sending letters to brothers who are imprisoned for their faith. There is no arrangement for the branch office to provide addresses for these brothers or to forward personal letters, packages, or gifts to them. Thus, it would not be appropriate to organize groups or campaigns for the purpose of writing to imprisoned brothers unless instructed by your branch office to do so. It goes on to say, we commend you for keeping in mind our brothers who are imprisoned for their faith. In the first century, imprisoned brothers such as Peter and Paul were greatly helped by the prayers of fellow believers. May we never cease praying in behalf of our dear imprisoned brothers, trusting that Jehovah will give them the strength to endure. And within here, they have sprinkled in Hebrews 13:3, Acts 12:5, Ephesians 6:18, and Hebrews 10:34. So this means that if you are going to prison for the Watchtower, for their cause, they're not organizing any support for you. And in that same announcement, they talked about how they were going to just offer up prayer and supplication for these brothers. Now, I want to just take you back some years when I used to do emails and people used to send out emails before Facebook was popular. And there was this email, I'm not going to probably get it exactly the way it was, but it went something like this. There is a person that died, okay, and went to the pearly gates. And when they got to the pearly gates, they asked Jesus, they said, how come you didn't save me? How come you allowed me to die? In whatever manner it was, right?
And Jesus replied, I sent you a rowboat and a motorboat and a helicopter. What more did you expect?
So in that email that, I'm referring to right now, it's kind of telling people that, yes, people will pray for you. But when God sends you the answer through another human, are you going to accept it? And that's what that email was all about that person not accepting the gifts that were bestowed or the person that was coming to save that individual from this instance, right? And so when you think about with the Watchtower telling their members that the only thing that they're going to do is offer up supplication prayers for them or whatever to get these brothers through their persecution and their prison sentence or whatever they got to get through, what do they think is going to happen to those prayers? And so it's kind of like a joke, a cruel joke, when you think about it. But then not only that, think about this. If you would delve into the scripture that they actually quoted, and so the Watchtower was referencing Acts 12:5, talking about how the people in the congregation was praying for Peter when he was in prison. However, they neglected to share the scripture at Philippians 4:10-18, because in these verses, Paul thanks the Philippians for their concern and support. He also acknowledges their gift and expresses gratitude for their generosity, which they sent to him while he was in prison. And what adds a lot of insult to injury is the next announcement to the congregation in the same letter. The next announcement is like, oh, and by the way, we have a new exhibit at our Canadian branch, and you should schedule a tour to go see it. And what is this all about? The exhibit at the Canada branch, it says, we're pleased to announce that all 3 exhibits at Canada Bethel are now open. As previously announced, the exhibits are Light of Truth Brightens the Canadian Landscape. And I'm not going to read all of these, but you can see the information here in the description. But the exhibits have to do with the Canadian brothers and sisters who remain loyal to Jehovah despite opposition and persecution. So now here they're going to have this exhibit where they want brothers to come to Canada and go out and look at these exhibits for the very issue that the brothers in Russia are going through right now, persecution. So now what we're going to do is we're going to identify the irony of this situation. Number 1, the announcement highlights exhibits about enduring faith and standing firm in trials. Yet the very members who are currently enduring persecution are left without support. It's a glaring contradiction. Point number 2, this reveals the Watchtower's priorities. Instead of directing efforts and resources towards helping imprisoned members, they're focusing on opening and promoting exhibits. This business as usual attitude shows a disturbing disconnect from the real struggles of their followers. And point number 3, the focus on preserving and celebrating their history seems hollow when their present actions or lack thereof fail to uphold the values they claim to honor. How can an organization boast about historical acts of faith while neglecting those currently suffering for the same cause? So when you think about how these things are playing out on the Watchtower stage, people just don't think. They just blindly sit there believing that the Watchtower is going to have their back no matter what happens, but they're not thinking about how they're not really true to the cause that they claim to have so much interest in. So anyway, I just want to bring that to your attention, and I hope that you can leave your comments below. I'd love to hear what you have to say about those announcements, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thank you for tuning in. If you're interested in sharing your experience about how you can help others to learn life lessons without going through the experience, I look forward to hearing from you. Please send me an email to info@hiddenstruggles.com.